Thank you. Definitely need my notes for this one. There we go. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Good morning to all of you that are watching us on the internet. Happy New Year to all. Oh, it's a new year. I hope you all had a good break. And since we are sure you had a good break, we're going to jump right in with the most profound topic of them all. How did God create the universe? As I was walking up here, Riemann said, good luck. So we'll see where we can go with that. How did God create the universe? Two great masters, liberated beings, separated by time and space and culture, gave the same thrilling answer to this question. In the Bible, recording the words of Jesus Christ, St. John writes in his Gospel, "In the beginning there was the Word, and the Word was with God. The Word was God." And then he goes on to say, "All things were made by him, and without him was not anything made that was made." 700 years previously, far away from the hills of Judea, in the dusty plains of a battlefield on the eve of a great battle, the great master Krishna, speaking to the warrior disciple Arjuna, echoed the same words. He said, "I make and unmake this universe. Apart from me, nothing exists. All things, like the beads of a necklace, are strung together by the thread of my consciousness and are sustained by me." So it's not that God is out there and does the creation and kind of steps back, and then we are permanently separated by this chasm of God, by the Creator and the created. But rather, what this is saying, all things were made by him, and without him was not anything made that was made. All things are sustained by the thread of my consciousness. Saying that God is part of every atom of matter. The consciousness of God lies dormant in material things, and flowers with every thought, with the very quality of awareness, is but a dim reflection of the consciousness of God. When I was growing up, I was somebody, I don't know who it was, my mother, brother, somebody, used to tell me this story often, and it took me years to figure out that this was actually about how God made the universe. It's a beautiful story. It's appropriate for children. It said that in the beginning, there was a vast ocean of milk. Just imagine that. It was infinite in extent, and it was eternal. Always existed, will always exist. What is that? A vast ocean of milk. And suddenly, in this vast ocean of milk, there appeared a beautiful baby. And it was sucking its toe like only babies can. And it was on a fig leaf. So with the vast ocean of milk, eternal and infinite, a beautiful baby on a fig leaf, bobbing up and down, sucking its toe. And suddenly, from the navel of this baby, baby Vishnu, comes a lotus. And on that lotus is sitting an impossibly ancient bearded being with 4 bearded faces and 4 hands. Each hand is holding one of the Vedas. Vedas is the word of God. And from his 4 mouths emerged the thunderous sound of Om, spreading spherically in all directions. And that's how we were created. In the beginning, there was the Word, and the Word was with God. The Word was God. Paramhansa Yogananda, whose teachings we follow here, explains it in a very easy to understand way. He says that God the Infinite One, God the Infinite Spirit, set a portion of his consciousness into vibration, and that became 2 and many, until these cosmic vibrations produced all the stars, galaxies and planets, plants and trees and men and women. And he goes on to say, at this cosmic vibration is called Om, and it's the word in the Gospel of St. John. Now it's the new year, we have to talk about profound things, and this is about as profound as it gets. When you encounter a teaching like this, you say, it resonates somewhere very deep in our soul, but you don't know where to put it. You say, oh, that's really good to know. Thank you for letting me know. You kind of move on, because it's good, but where do I go with it? Well, it turns out that this is one of the most practical teachings. It's at the heart of every spiritual advice given by every great spiritual tradition, because the sound of Om, and I say sound of Om, it is a sound, it is it's wonderful to hear it, but it could also mean light, it could mean qualities like peace and wisdom and so on. The sound of Om is the way that God is communicating with us. The voice of God pours out from the heart of eternity. Yogananda called it whispers from eternity, giving us inspiration, guidance, comfort, freedom from sorrow. And so Yogananda says that as we become more and more aware, these whispers from eternity become clearer in response to my demands. In the Yoga Sutras, Patanjali, Yoga Sutras is kind of the source textbook of yoga. And in chapter 1, Patanjali says something very cryptic. Sutra means very pithy. And here's a pithy statement for you. He says, I'll say it in Sanskrit, Tasya vachakaha pranavaha. Tasya means yours, meaning God's. Vachaka comes from the same root as voice. Vachaka means one that speaks for you, spokesperson, the faithful and true witness. Your spokesperson, Tasya vachakaha pranavaha. Pranava means another name for Om. It means ever new vibrations, ever new joy. Om is the spokesperson of God. It's the whispers coming from eternity. Om is what sustains the human body. It says in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 4, that man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeded from the mouth of God. It's the power behind everything that we do. Jesus Christ in the book of Revelation calls it the great comforter, the abode of all healing power and freedom from sorrows, as Yogananda says. So communicating with Om, this is just not merely a teaching, kind of something to think about, but communicating with Om, communing, not so much communicating, communing is at the heart of all meditation. The great goal of meditation techniques, where it takes us, the gift of meditation, is communion with this cosmic vibration. It's a very famous Upanishad, the old ancient teachings of India, where I came across this beautiful statement. I'd never come across it before. It says, Om is the bow, the soul is the arrow, and God is the target. Think about that the soul flies towards the heart of God, powered by the vibration of Om. And therefore, Om is at the heart of all religious, all spiritual traditions as well. This is why the sound of Om has many names. In Bible alone, there's at least 3 commonly used names, many more. It's called Amen, the true and faithful witness in the book of Revelation. It's referred to many times as the Holy Ghost. Jesus calls it the great comforter. The Hindu tradition, there is of course Om. It's the Divine Mother, especially Kali. It is Pranava, the ever new vibration, ever new joy. In Japan, I came across this. It's really interesting. There are, in some Buddhist temples, especially in Kyoto, there are statues at the entrance. There's 2 statues, one with the mouth wide open and the other with the mouth closed. And these are called Neo statues, N-I-O, Neo statues. And this is thought to represent Om with the first syllable A and the last syllable through which you walk. It's there everywhere. Amin and Ahunavar, and there are Chinese names for it, every spiritual tradition. This is why it tunes into it. Then that brings up the big question, the elephant in the room, which is, how do we tune into? How do we hear? And once again, it's not just hearing, it could be light or peace or the uncorrupted joy, love of the heart, and so on. How do we commune with that? Is it an experience reserved only for those people that have given up everything? You know, Master Yogananda, in this reading you heard, he closed his eyes and he saw wondrous visions, or he saw wondrous light. Is it reserved for people like that? Well, it's certainly their privilege, they have it. Do we have to go to a monastery or practice austerity in the Himalayas, be a yogi and practice meditation 8 hours a day? Fortunately for us, the answer is no, you don't have to. It's accessible to anyone who goes inward, who meditates, especially through the techniques of Kriya Yoga. Yogananda called it the airplane route to God. And he said even a novice meditator begins to hear this wondrous sound. But is this good? This next part, it is said often, but not really heard that often. It's not merely about technique or about discipline. If we choose to meditate and we really internalize the technique, we sit down, we come at it with determination and discipline. You can sustain it for a week or two, but soon it begins to fizzle out. You attend satsangs, you attend classes, you be patient, you're creative, you're intelligent, and so on. But the downward pull of habits, the miasma of inertia is so great that too, you'll be unable to sustain it. In fact, this is what happens with our New Year's resolutions. Perhaps many of you have made New Year's resolutions. I've made a few myself right this moment. And I've had an atrocious record of keeping up with New Year's resolutions. There's a company called Strava. If you are into cycling or running, Strava, it's a place where millions of people go and log their activities. I ran this much today. This was the path that I took. This is how much I biked, and so on. So last year, it's 2021 already, so 2 years ago in 2019, Strava did a massive study. They studied 800 million activities, and then they figured out something very interesting. You know what they figured out? January 19th. January 19th, what happens? The majority of the people on January 19th abandon their New Year's resolutions. If you come at it with discipline and determination, enthusiasm and self-control, the war only lasts for 18 days, no matter what the outcome, one way or another. It's an 18-day war. January 19th, the majority of the people are done. I'm not making this up. You can go Google this. And then they found that about 18 days after that, around the second week of February, about 80% of the people drop off. That's how far discipline and determination take us. Even higher order things, satsang, patience, creativity, intelligence, they extend the battle to another 18 days and then you're done. Something else is needed. What do you think that is? I'll tell you a story. It's not a story that happened a long time ago in a faraway land. In fact, it happened in Arkansas in 1991. It's the story of Dina Castor. And she was, some of you may have heard of her. She's a very famous long-distance runner. As a child, she had such a prodigious talent. She was so incredibly talented. She's talented now too, but her talent was so great that as a child, she only won all her races. Through her high school senior year, She was from southern LA, so the competition's very fierce for things like long distance running. She just went out, she ran, and she won. People wrote about her. When she was in the grocery store, somebody said, "What's your carb loading strategy? I want to do the same thing." And this is kind of what happened. And then she got an athletic scholarship to University of Arkansas. And then she began to compete in the big leagues. She experienced her first defeat. She didn't know how to handle it. But then she found strength inside. She began to train. She said, "I put my heart and soul into my training." And then she began to win again. So her talent was complemented by training and discipline. But then, within about a year, she got injured. Very depressed. She gave up running for a year and took up baking. She actually made some famous baked scones that were very famous in Fayetteville, apparently. And then, before she quit, she talked to a very wonderful coach. Coach Dan Vigil was his name. And the coach said, "Don't give up yet, because talent and technique alone is not enough. You need values, you need patience, creativity, intelligence. And when you come up against obstacles, you need to live your values. That's how you become a good runner." And she learned the difference between winning. Winning means having the next championship, the next medal, the next article in the paper. Having versus being. Being is excellence, which is about coming up against obstacles, going deep inside, finding your values and saying, "This is me. These obstacles or winning or losing doesn't define me." So he taught her the difference. She began to apply it. And she said, "I became part of the process now. I'm no longer a talented person who wants to win, but I truly became a runner. Running became more important to me than winning." So she had more strength. She shaved off the times of her long runs in a way that she'd never been able to do. She ran fast. It's the best running shape of her life. National cross-country championships. She entered, and she started, the gun fired, she started fast. After a few miles, there was not a hint of tiredness. It's like, "Oh, is this really me? Coach's methods are really working." Then she hears a rumble of footsteps behind her. And not one, not two, but 15 runners just surge past her. She's still not tired. She says, "Okay, I can do it. My body is feeling great." And she begins to run more. She puts out her maximum effort, but those guys are getting farther and farther. It's as if she just came against something that she could not overcome. Hills are her specialty, so she said, "I'll do it over the next hill." Did that. They moved even farther ahead. And then at some point, she realized, Dina Castor, she said, "No matter what I do, I cannot win this." And at that moment, her mind gave up. And she said, "I lost the race right at that moment, even though there was a mile to run." Then she finishes 20th, which is nothing to write home about. So now what to do? With discipline, satsang, talent, technique, creativity, intelligence, patience, that's how far she got. The coach's wife, very wise woman named Caroline, one day out of the blue, she said, "Dina, why don't you make a gratitude list?" You must have seen it on Facebook. I get this gratitude list all the time on Facebook. But this one was real. Maybe those are real too, I'm just saying. Once you make a gratitude list, you have to write 10 things you're grateful for every day. Sounding a little bit corny, right? But stay with me. So she began to write them. Initially, the first few days were easy. I'm grateful for my health, for my parents, for my coach, and on and on. Then it became harder. So she said, "I got up in the morning and began to look for things to put on my list. Otherwise, there is no way she could write 10. So she began to run. And she's running on the grass. She was grateful for the smell of grass. And she's running by a farm, some manure, fertilizer, not a good smell, but she was grateful for the farmer that grew food for her, and so on. And pretty soon, she said, I was able to find things to be grateful for everywhere I looked. He said, I began to live in a bubble of gratitude. And now, one day she was running, it was her second run of the day. It was an endurance training. And then she began to feel like she'd reached her limit, that feeling that she had when she lost the race. And then because of her gratitude thing, she looked at the setting sun and said, oh, what a beautiful red orb, I'm grateful for it. Look at the way it's reflecting off the mountains, I'm grateful for it, the burbling of the river. And she laughed out in sheer gratitude. And then, suddenly she noticed a current of energy pumping through her body. It came from an unknown source, nothing to do with her muscles. She said, I don't know where it's coming from. And she said that it came from the fact that she was so deeply harmonized with everything around her, that everything, because of gratitude, everything was exactly where it was supposed to be. Whatever was happening in this moment was exactly the right thing. And she ran like she never did before. And she knew that she found the source of strength that would never let her down from this point on. She shaved off 83 and a half seconds from her 10K, which is a 6-mile run. And she is now, she holds the American record for marathon. It's extraordinary. When I read this, I thought, what's the word for gratitude in Sanskrit? That's how I often think. And it's called kritagna. Kri means, it's the same root as kriya, which means to do. Krita means having done or accomplished. It is done. Gya, the same root as gnosis, knowledge, a certain knowledge of the truth. So kritagna, put it all together. What does it mean? It means knowledge that it was done, knowledge that I didn't do it. It was done. So that's what gratitude means, a certainty that I didn't do it. All the things happening around me, it is being done. And therefore, it softens the ego. We often live in the thought that I did this, I have to do this, I have to, it's so great, I'm so bad, and so on. Kritagna, knowledge that I didn't do it. Gratitude begins to soften the ego, and soon that transitions. Gratitude transitions into awe that not only the things happening outside of me, I didn't do it, the next breath I take, I didn't take it, it's being done through me. So gratitude transitions into awe, surrender, which then transitions into true longing, shraddha, it's called in Sanskrit. So from kritagna, gratitude, to shraddha, longing, that's the missing ingredient. So going all the way back, how do we commune with the sound of Om? Whether you are in this for self-transformation through New Year's resolutions or self-realization by communing with Om, start with gratitude, a certain knowledge that it was done, that I didn't do it. And then the real meaning of the teaching, in the beginning there was the Word, and the Word was with God, the Word was God. All things are strung together like beads of a necklace by the thread of God's consciousness and sustained by God. The meaning of this becomes clear. That's the real value of how the universe was made and how it can give us the power to endure through life's challenges. Happy New Year.